The war in Ukraine will end this year. Kremlin is ready for a ceasefire by the end of May. Meanwhile, Syrian dictator Bashar Al Assad was poisoned in Moscow. So what is known about the current predictions on the end of the war in Ukraine, and under what kind of terms the ceasefire could be reached between Ukraine and Russia? Financial Times is confident that the war in Ukraine will end as early as this year, during the year of 2025, because both sides are ready for peace talks. Also, Financial Times is confident that Donald Trump could threaten Putin to impose more serious sanctions against Russian economy, which is already in struggle. Also, Donald Trump could threaten Vladimir Putin to strengthen support for Ukraine, to provide Ukraine with additional military resources to inflict more damage on Russian army. Also, Financial Times is confident that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky could agree to froze the conflict in exchange for serious security guarantees from European allies. Meanwhile, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin also is interested in ending the war against Ukraine. Also, British TV Sky News also is confident that the war in Ukraine could be finished this year. According to Sky News, President Zelensky for the first time said that he would be ready for a ceasefire in case if Ukraine is invited to join NATO. On the other hand, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin for the first time said that he would be ready for a compromise over Ukraine in a peace talks with US President-elect Donald Trump. So Vladimir Putin for the first time said that he would be ready for a compromise over Ukraine, and many military and political experts are confident that there is a sign of a big U-turn in President Zelensky statements and in Vladimir Putin's statements. So, according to the many military and political experts, Russian economy is struggling. Vladimir Putin has lots of problems which he cannot overcome while he continues the war against Ukraine. Russian economy is in a free fall because the interest rate is more than 20%. The growth of Russia's GDP is slowed down by Western sanctions. Moreover, there is a high inflation rate in Russia, and prices on products and food prices are rising day by day in Russia because of the Western sanctions and because of the reckless. This all was caused by Vladimir Putin's reckless decision to invade Ukraine. Now Russian economy is struggling, and that's why Vladimir Putin is asking for a ceasefire as soon as possible, because he would like Donald Trump to lift some sanctions against Russian economy. So according to Politico, Donald Trump have two main instruments of leverage on Vladimir Putin. The first instrument is sanctions. The second one, military support for Ukraine. So US President-elect Donald Trump can threaten Vladimir Putin to strengthen support for Ukraine, to provide Ukraine with more serious weapons, and to allow Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia. Secondly, Donald Trump can propose, on the other hand, Vladimir Putin to lift some sanctions against Russia in exchange for a ceasefire and for stopping the war against Ukraine. That's how Donald Trump can end this war as soon as possible. Also, according to the Kate Kellogg, US Special Representative for Ukraine and Russia, the line of contact in the war in Ukraine, front lines could be frozen, a demilitarized zone could be established between Ukrainian and Russian forces, and moreover, European peacekeeping forces could be deployed to Ukraine to patrol the zone and to deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again in the future. This is a main part of Kit Kellogg plan to end the war in Ukraine. In exchange of that, Ukraine also would receive enormous amounts of US-made weapons, because it would be beneficial for American economy. Also, in exchange of that, Vladimir Putin could face lifting some serious sanctions against Russian economy, which could help Russia at least to survive. And many military and political experts are confident that all things are moving today closer to a ceasefire in Ukraine and to a demilitarized zone. On the other hand, also Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said for the first time that Donald Trump could be a decisive factor in ending this war as early as this year. President Zelensky said that Donald Trump really has enough power to end the war in Ukraine. He can force Vladimir Putin to surrender, to make serious concessions to Ukraine, and to agree with Trump's proposal on a ceasefire. For the first instance, Trump can impose serious sanctions against Vladimir Putin, could strengthen support to Ukraine, and also could provoke Russian problems and could slow down the rise of the oil prices. He could impose serious sanctions against Putin and could force Putin, put Putin on his knees by imposing another sanctions against Russian economy. So on the other hand, we have her starting position of Ukraine for negotiations. Ukraine is ready for a ceasefire in exchange of membership in NATO. However, Donald Trump will not give that to Ukraine. So there is another option for Donald Trump to provide Ukraine with serious security guarantees. According to President Zelensky, for a ceasefire, Ukraine will need not only security guarantees from the European countries, but also from the United States of America. And that's why Donald Trump should be ready to provide Ukraine with serious, bold security guarantees, which will deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again in the future. And on the other hand, it seems like Vladimir Putin is trying to find way out of this situation, is trying to help himself to survive, because many experts are confident if Vladimir Putin declines Trump's offer to Ukraine, if Putin declines Trump's offer on Ukraine, then he will face serious, devastating consequences from Trump's administration, because they will strengthen sanctions against Russia, and they will provide Ukraine with additional support to help Vladimir Putin to recalculate his position and to agree with Trump's proposal on a ceasefire in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Syrian dictator Bashar Al Assad was poisoned in Moscow, according to the British newspaper The Sun. This is unconfirmed report, however, it is really interesting one. So according to The Sun, Bashar Al Assad, Syrian dictator who fled to Moscow, probably was poisoned because he couldn't breathe properly after one incident which occurred in his apartment, and that's why his today's condition is stable. However, it could be the first attempt to assassinate Bashar al-Assad. Many political and national security experts are confident that Bashar al-Assad will not stay in Moscow in full security and will not be provided with full security. It will not be really protective for Bashar al-Assad to stay in Moscow. It would not be safe enough for him to stay alive there, because there are many threats who could be devastating for him. For example, Vladimir Putin on any kind of day could decide to eliminate him physically, as it was with Putin's inner circle, many top businessmen and his political rivals, because he is not afraid of Bashar al-Assad. He is angry at Bashar al-Assad because Bashar al-Assad failed to help Russia to stay in power in Syria. He failed to stay in power there, and he failed Russia to continue to have military presence there. Also, according to the Ukrainian military intelligence, Russia failed to negotiate to continue their military presence in Syria. That's why they are withdrawing its military personnel and troops from Syria to Africa, to Libya. And that's why Russia has failed and have Russia has completely lost its military presence in Syria, in Tartus and in Khmeimim, and that's why this is the biggest strategic fail of Russia in Syria and on the international stage. And in the end of our conversation, we will cover current situation in the South Korea. So the attempt to arrest the president of the South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, has failed because his security services did not allow the law enforcement agency to properly arrest Yoon Suk-yeol. So as we know, the president of the South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, tried to establish a martial law in South Korea to strengthen his grip on power. However, this attempt has failed because the parliament of South Korea declined this offer. The parliament voted against declaring a martial law. That's why martial law has not been declared. After these developments, Yoon Suk-yeol, president of South Korea, he apologized over this attempt to strengthen his grip on power. However, it seems like this was not enough because he was impeached by the parliament, and now there is a big investigation against him, and there is a big criminal investigation. He is alleged to organize a mutiny, and that's why the law enforcement agencies tried to arrest him. They failed to do so, but there is an arrest warrant for Yoon Suk-yeol for organizing a mutiny in South Korea, and that's why the democracy in South Korea did not fail. It has successfully protected country from a chaos which could have been provoked by the Yoon Suk-yeol. But stay with us on YouTube, and we will cover and check, and we will analyze the next developments around the globe in Ukraine and also in the South Korea. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, stay with us on YouTube, and glory to Ukraine!